on Power Talk AM 1460 and FM 101.1. Streaming worldwide on iHeartRadio. Jan Price talks to the movers and shakers in the film business. The Jan Price Show.
Oh, you're listening to the Jan Price Show, and today my guest is director Scott Mann, and we're going to be talking about his brand new movie, Final Score. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's nice to have you on the show. First, I always like to start off with, how did you get into this crazy business?
Yeah, it's well, I always wanted to direct. I always wanted to be a director from the age of I don't know, as young as 8, 9 years old. I always loved movies, and I probably didn't know what a director was at that point, truthfully, but I knew I wanted to make films, and I played with like animation on my computer at the time. I remember I had an Amiga computer. I did little like 20-frame animations and silly things. And then I was looking at the camera when I was about 12 years old. I got a video camera and started making short films, and that's kind of what got me into it, really.
So just doing those short films that at 12 years old.
Yeah. At 12 years, yeah. Obviously, I didn't go straight into it. It's kind of, there was a long journey between that and actually making a feature. But yeah, I think I started kind of learning then, and I did a short film called The Sneeze when I was 15 years old, and it was kind of an homage to Terminator 2, which is probably my all-time favorite movie, I would say, and one that I obsessively watched back when it came out when I was like 14, 15, and I made this little like animation live action thing, this short, The Sneeze, and it got me. It kind of did okay at some like festivals, especially like young people filmmaker festivals, and it led me to getting a job at Granada Television in Manchester, and that's when. And I think I was 17 when I started there, and that was my first kind of foot in the door of a professional job, kind of doing the type of thing I wanted to do. But yeah, it's just like I think it's always been. I think I've always felt that it's always been that practicing and making films has always kind of taken me steps forward, really. So I've just been lucky when things have landed and helped flip it into something meaningful. And then I guess from there, like until I think I was 26, 27 when I shot my first feature, The Tournament. So it was still a good 10 years from that moment to actually doing what I really wanted to do, which is direct features. And that in itself was kind of a journey as well. So I kind of had to, there's a lot involved to get there, and a lot of not giving up, honestly, because I tried a few different times in a few different ways to get into it, and it took me a while to kind of crack the shell type thing.
And that's the thing about this business, you have to have perseverance.
Yeah, 100%. Like, yeah, I think that's the. Like, I think it's totally true. I don't know anyone who hasn't kind of been through. You've got to learn to fail, don't you? And you have to kind of embrace it and learn from it and move forward. And I think that's the sooner you can grasp that lesson, the better, really. So. Yeah, you definitely got to have kind of the will to keep going in the worst circumstances is usually the thing. But also a lot of luck as well, let's be honest.
Well, what is the saying about luck? It's when opportunity, with the work you've done the work and an opportunity shows up, and that's luck, when you're actually ready for what you're supposed to be doing at that moment in time.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. Yes, yeah, absolutely. And it's and I think, and I think I've been. And luck strikes in the weirdest ways, doesn't it? I mean, it always when you don't expect it, I suppose. And so I think, I think that's the other part of it. Like, I think early on when I started out, I would like try and plan things and think, oh, it's got to be this way, and I'll do this way, and it never goes to plan, So I think it's just kind of keeping it alive and pushing forward the way the way to do it. If anyone wants to ask advice on it, you know.
Yes, that's very good. Well, you did a film, Heist. Tell us a little bit about that movie. It was released in 2015 by Lionsgate, and it starred Robert De Niro and Jeffrey Dean Morgan and Kate Bosworth and Dave Bautista, who is the star of Final Score. So tell us a little bit about how that movie came about, and what was it like working with De Niro?
Well, you know, that's a funny one. It's I think. That one came about in a weird way. It's like I was working on other projects, I was doing different things, and again, I had a kind of plan that was going ahead, but then suddenly I got a call from Adam Goldwyn, my manager, and he had a script that Lionsgate were doing. They were looking for a director. De Niro was interested, but the kind of next stage forward and all that was like he wanted to meet the director and talk about the project. It was kind of at this incubant stage, an exciting stage, and it was kind of an exciting project, you know, a Go project that was happening, and it was kind of, you know, an exciting one to read. And I remember I read the script, and it had been through, like a lot of these things, they go through like these different elements of development and whatnot. And I remember being surprised, honestly, that I felt like I know there'd been a lot of development around the role for De Niro at that time, and it had been kind of messed around too much. It had been like overdeveloped, and I didn't feel like the De Niro role weirdly was that strong, and so when I kind of went towards it with an eye to like why, you know, what was wrong with it, and try and think of other ideas that would help it, and I went through the bizarre thing of setting up a Skype with Bob, which is just weird in itself, as you can imagine.
Yes.
It's just really, you know, really nerve-wracking. I'll be honest. Like, I would say, if anything, like the good thing about prior to that moment, you know, you get starstruck. Like, everyone's human, and when you kind of meet someone who you've admired, who's kind of you know, in the place that said Bob De Niro is, it's like, you know, there's a fear and there's a kind of development where, and as a director, you're kind of not supposed to show that. So I was kind of nervous getting on this call with him, and I figured, look, worst case, you know, it'd be great to kind of talk to him about it. But, you know, I wasn't sure how it was all going to go. And I get on the call, and we kind of exchange pleasantries and start relaxing a bit. And one of the first things he says is, look, I've just reread the script, and I don't think I'm going to do this, Scott. Like, I don't want to waste your time, but I don't think it's for me, because I think the character, there's kind of issues with the character. And I kind of dove in, and I thought, I'm just going to kind of tell it honestly. I said, look, I also, you know, I know there is, and I'm 100% agree with you, and I don't blame you for feeling that way at all. But I had this idea for it, and I kind of pitched in my idea for it, which is really rooting into something truthful in myself, which was about fatherhood and about kind of, like I said, I got two young kids, Evie and Joseph, who at the time, you know, were very young, and I was kind of feeling the stresses, I guess, of doing a job that you love, being away from the family, and the kind of stresses of that, of what that does to you, and I kind of talked to Bob about that, and how I really would love to do a character that explores that and that kind of tests that, like taking a character that we kind of know him for, but take the kind of gangster character to the end of his life and reflect on something and give him a kind of difficult choice, and really in that film it was like the heart of it was doing this. An antagonist's arc, which is very kind of rare to get, but I thought if anyone can pull off a great antagonist arc, it's Robert De Niro. And yeah, I pitched him all this, and he got excited, and he invited me to come to New York, like the next day or something crazy, which I did. And then we kind of hung out for a couple of days and worked through a new version of the character and some change in the script, and worked through that together. And it was really bizarre to be doing that, but amazing, you know. And I think that after that, it kind of broke my starstruck for everyone else beyond that, you know. I was there, I think after he gave me a lovely hug when I first saw him, and it was just, and it normalized it all, and it became kind of a normal person, another human being just like anyone else, and that was the start of a great working relationship. So I was very lucky the way that played out, and I was very fortunate that kind of Bob got excited about the material and we got to develop it develop it together. But yeah, it was a crazy time. I remember coming through the airport actually, and even at the airport, like they quizzed me at customs. Like, what are you doing? Hello, sir. What are you doing? What's your business? And I'd be like, I'm a director. And then, why are you in New York today? And it's like, I'm meeting someone who's like, who are you meeting? An actor. Like, which actor? And I'm like, Robert De Niro. And he looked at me like, you're full of rubbish. There's no way you are. And then kind of ushered me through. But yeah, it was great. I have nothing but very happy memories, experience for Bob, and it was through the whole thing. It's great to be doing it with him. It made a huge difference to it all. But that's how that project kind of happened, and like all these things, they tend to have these strange births, for films to get off the ground. It's always in this kind of random, strange way, and you kind of got to roll with the punches, really, to get it there.
Very interesting, very exciting. What a great opportunity to collaborate with Robert De Niro.
Yeah.
One of the all-time greats. So that's very, very exciting. We're going to be right back after these brief messages. You're listening to the Jan Price Show, all about movies on Power Talk 1460 and 101 FM. Like the Jan Price Show on Facebook and check out thejanpriceshow.com.
Tired of looking at your worn wood floors? Mr. Sandless can bring them back to life again. That's right. It's Mr. Sandless, the no-sanding solution to beautiful wood floors. Mr. Sandless is clean, efficient, contains no harmful chemicals, and is certified green. Mr. Sandless refinishes all hardwoods, softwoods, engineered flooring, and laminates. Most jobs are completed in one day with no cleanup required ever, with virtually no odor, and is safe for pets and kids. No need to move out or even leave the house. Mr. Sandless is the company that invented Sandless Refinishing and is the largest floor refinishing company in the world. Over 120,000 happy customers, guaranteed adhesion, guaranteed satisfaction, and a 5-year warranty. Call Mr. Sandless today at 831-747-7476. That's 747-7476. Or MrSandless.com. That's MrSandless.com.
On Power Talk AM 1460 and FM 101.1, streaming worldwide on iHeartRadio. Jan Price talks to the movers and shakers in the film business. The Jan Price Show.
We are back, and my guest today is Scott Mann, director Scott Mann, and we're talking about his brand new movie, Final Score. So the making of this movie, Final Score, it was like an intrigue. I mean, you should make the movie about how the movie was made.
We totally should. It's as interesting, if not more interesting, than the movie, right? It's the most bizarre thing ever. I like this one. It was. I met a producer in February of, I think it's 2016. I was like, I had other things kind of bubbling along, and then this. It was someone. It was through two of the producers that were involved with Heist, actually. Robert Jones and Wayne from the Fizz. They introduced me to a lifelong West Ham fan called Mark Goldberg, and he was a UK producer himself, distributor, and he heard that the West Ham Stadium was, they were transferring from one stadium to another, and the West Ham Stadium was going to be demolished and made into some property thing. And he really wanted to do something with the stadium prior to that happening, because it had this kind of hold-off period where English heritage got involved and no one could do anything with it for a few weeks. And he'd approached these guys only weeks prior to me meeting them, saying, look, we've got this potential location. I spoke to the developers. They seem happy enough that we do something. Is there a way we could make a film in there and kind of, make it a little salute to his favourite stadium as well? And they set about, they kind of did this pitching process, and these guys, the brothers Lynch, they pitched this, they heard many ideas, but they pitched this idea and wrote this script, and that's what I read back in February. And I think the shock was it was way better than it should have been. Do you know what I mean? In that time frame, it was a miracle that the script was where it was, there. And what I loved about it, even though there was kind of similarities, kind of the whole Die Hard in a football stadium line that I've heard many times. There's obviously similarities in old movies, but what was fresh about it was what what was inside of it. You know, there's fresh ideas. It was kind of daring and risky, and ultimately it was bonkers. You know, it was absolutely just a crazy kind of absurd, unique mix of things that I hadn't seen before, and I always loved this idea of like doing a British action movie, like a British sensibility, big action movie that's kind of shot there, based there, written there, that comes out there because obviously it's my home, and I've always wanted kind of the opportunity to do that. So I came aboard in February, and really the immediate thing was we had this kind of gun to the head that if we want to make this film, we have to be shooting, I think it was by June or July. Otherwise, you know, it's getting demolished no matter what. Do you know what I mean? We might be a film crew, but it's a tens, £100 million development. They are not going to wait or move for anyone. So it was like you had this real deadline to get it in by, or you lose it all, you know. And that's kind of what we were faced with when I kind of stepped aboard, I suppose.
I found it fascinating that this movie came about because the stadium that was built, in 1909 or something like that?
Yeah, over 100 years old.
Sorry, say it again?
It's like over 100 years old.
Yeah.
Like, the stadium is just like old. Yeah, it's like an old ship, and it's an amazing place. Like it's so kind of rooted in history, and you know, one of the first things I did. I went there with the writers, and we looked at like what we could do there and how we could really use it. And if this is our asset, if it's the seed of what we're doing, what can we do here? What fun can we have? How to make the best version of this movie with what we have? And we had a great guy who at first we couldn't get anywhere, we couldn't get access to anywhere. But I remember there was this one steward there who's called Faisal. And he just gave us access to all areas, took us to the roof, took us to all these different places. We were like, oh, it'd be cool if we jump a motorcycle up there. Let's find a way to do it. That kind of thing. And this Faisal, he kind of showed us around. And we actually named one of the characters in the movie, played by Amit Shah, Faisal, the steward, because on behalf of that guy, because he was a great guy. Really helped us out. You're right. It's the craziest reason to make a movie, you know. But there are millions of reasons why not to make a film. Like that's what I see all the time, right? It's like most people in the industry, especially, like it's because you kind of make, because films is kind of a strange one, isn't it? Where you're kind of making, it's like fairy dust. It's like it's you're making something for entertainment's sake. There's so many reasons not to make something that. The things, great films, great projects never go past like many stages of the process. Like you can have a great script, but it won't happen because the fear of X, Y, and Z. It's kind of safer for financiers, execs, and whatnot to say no than say yes. And I think that happens far too often. But what I think would happen with our film here is we kind of, like Mark found. Not only with passion and enthusiasm that he had, but he also found kind of an asset that we had to lose, you know. So if we didn't make it, it was almost like, correct, we've got something to lose here, so let's try not to lose it. And that's a different frame of mind. And I think that's also helped kind of create this, you know, in the time frame we had. So, so it was insane. It's a crazy reason to make a movie, isn't it? Let's be honest.
Well, the stadium's going to be demolished, so let's make a movie about the stadium.
Let's film the demolishing. Let's get that on camera, because that's the thing. We could actually destroy parts of the stadium because we're getting destroyed anyway. Like I remember after we do like spoiler alerts and whatnot, but when the stadium blows, it was like we did the aftermath scenes and what happened at that point is obviously towards the very end of the shoot, you know, and this is kind of flipping forward quite a bit, but I remember that we had to, we did the explosion, and at that time we were all, because of like the film production and because of the way it kind of to try and put all the kind of production value on screen, we all opted just to live in the stadium. So we moved in there, like the boxes were converted to hotel rooms, and essentially like 60, 70, 80 of us, we would finish at 5 a.m. in the morning when the sun's coming up. We would go to Emil Topazov, who's the DP, would go to his room, have wine and cheese, maybe a bottle of Corona as the sun rose, and then we'd go into our rooms, go to sleep, and then the next morning open the curtains, and the picture would be there, and we'd get ready for the next day's shoot. So it was very kind of film schooly, and everyone kind of, you know, really close together. It was brilliant. But I remember the night we blew the stadium, obviously a lot of adrenaline was high and everything, but obviously for a movie explosion, it's a lot of, even though you can damage stuff, it's not really a physical explosion, it's a visual one. And we had this overnight thing to dress the set to look like the aftermath, because we had a day of shooting the aftermath. We had to get the bulldozers in that were kind of standing by to demolish the thing anyway, but they came in overnight, so we went to bed, closed the curtains, and then didn't really get a wink's sleep, because all night there was this smashing and knocking and rattling and jackhammers and all kinds of things. And I remember opening my curtains, and I was like, my room was actually like in the middle of that section, the corner of the stadium that gets destroyed. I remember opening it up, and it just looked like, like the world had ended, It was like they'd smashed in the concrete, like all this stuff that would really be, in a normal movie, you'd be talking about like millions of dollars worth of set dressing, right? And it would take, intensive labor for weeks to make it look that way. But we had this opportunity where we were able to actually do that for real and like set about this destruction and really kind of have it there on camera. And I remember thinking, this is great for the film. It's really good to be able to genuinely do this. And even though it was sad as well, I'll be honest, there was a sadness about it, because the stadium, it was actually seeing the stadium start to get demolished, and I guess we'd all grown to love it at that point. So it was also kind of tinged with sadness, but we tried to immortalize it in the best way we could. So hopefully it worked out well.
It did. It's so fun. I just can't believe, though, I talk to so many people in this industry, and, it takes years and years and years sometimes. This will be a passion project that maybe have taken 10 years. And we're talking about people, that some, have huge names in the business.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Deadpool, took about 10 years for that movie to be made, which, look at the huge hit that became and the sequel became. And then this movie was just, fast forwarded only because a stadium was going to be demolished, and let's create a movie that we can put in the stadium. And then you went and found writers. You did didn't you kind of do like a contest in a way to find writers?
That's right. No, totally right. So the kickoff was, there's a contest ran to kind of treatment, I think it was. This is prior to me kind of getting involved, but the backstory that I got, they'd done this contest.
Nope, we've lost you.
And up into outline. And
Scott, can you repeat that again? Oh. You went out a little bit. Can you repeat?
Oh, did I? I'm sorry, John.
Yes, go ahead.
Sorry. Let me check. Are we good on signal?
You're fine now. I think.
Are we loud and clear?
Now you are at the moment. Yes, go ahead.
Oh, good stuff. So we had this competition where they set about, and I think it was like they had like 70, 80 entrants, and then the best 10 they wrote into outlines, and then from the outlines they kind of, I think they paid like, I think it was script that emerged from that was Lynch, and that was the one I.
Nope, we lost you again.
So, a competition in that time. Script.
You know what, Scott? We're going to stop for a commercial break, and we'll come back, and maybe we can get you a little clearer in just a moment. We'll take a quick commercial break, and we'll come right back. You are listening to the Jan Price Show, all about movies, on Power Talk 1460 and 101 FM. Like the Jan Price Show on Facebook, and check out thejanpriceshow.com.
The Century Theater at Northridge Mall is newly remodeled with luxury loungers in every auditorium. Oversized plush recliners are electric-powered reclining seats with extendable footrests, cup holders, and snack tables. Guaranteed comfort with all reserved seating. Reserve the best seat in town online at Cinemark.com or download the Cinemark app today. The Century Theater at Northridge Mall is newly remodeled. Tired of looking at your worn wood floors? Mr. Sandless can bring them back to life again. That's right. It's Mr. Sandless, the no sanding solution to beautiful wood floors. Mr. Sandless is clean, efficient, contains no harmful chemicals, and is certified green. Mr. Sandless refinishes all hardwoods, softwoods, engineered flooring, and laminates. Most jobs are completed in one day with no cleanup required ever, with virtually no odor, and is safe for pets and kids. No need to move out out or even leave the house. Mr. Sandless is the company that invented Sandless Refinishing and is the largest floor refinishing company in the world. Over 120,000 happy customers, guaranteed adhesion, guaranteed satisfaction, and a 5-year warranty. Call Mr. Sandless today at 831-747-7476. That's 747-7476. Or MrSandless.com. That's MrSandless.com.
On Power Talk AM 1460 and FM 101.1, streaming worldwide on iHeartRadio. Jan Price talks to the movers and shakers in the film business. The Jan Price Show.
You're listening to The Jan Price Show, all about movies, and my guest today is Scott Mann, director of The Final Score. Scott, before we took the break, we were talking a little bit about the writers' contest that took place to write this movie, Final Score. So tell us a little bit about what happened and what transpired.
Yeah, it was a little crazy. Like it was just prior to me kind of coming on board, the producers, they'd ran a contest to hear ideas, and I think they just did it over a website, pitch ideas, and then they had like 70 or 80 treatments written up, and then they selected their favorite 10, I think it was, and they were all wide ranging. You know, the only kind of caveat was there's a stadium to shoot in, and this is, you know, that was kind of how wide open it was. And I only heard about some of the other ideas like later on, but they were, you know, I think it's an interesting way of doing it, because obviously there's not much time, but what it does give you is kind of a wide berth of ideas, and also with the time frame, it gives you fresh, you know, in a sense, it's kind of society fresh, at least. Do you know what I mean? They're not ideas that have been stewing for 10 years. It's something that's, you know, coming about now. So they went through that process, and then I think they got it down to kind of 3 that were written up into kind of longer forms, and the favourite by far was the Brothers Lynch script, which is what I read, and which was, as I mentioned, it was far better than it should have ever have been, given the crazy turnaround, you know, of only a matter of weeks to get to that point from idea to script. So they worked day and night relentlessly and did an incredible job, and that's what got me in. And
then how did you get attracted to this project?
It was really the madness of it all. Like, I loved the ingredients. I loved the situation. Honestly, like, it was so crazy. It was kind of like, this is so crazy, it might just work, you know. And I loved how it was. Like I say, there's an opportunity for it to be. I liked how it was kind of refreshing, and it wasn't taking itself seriously. And I think that also kind of ties in with where we were in the world, because I'm kind of a firm believer that kind of films, I like the escapism of films, and I think it's, you know, we kind of almost want to counter where we are in the real world. It's kind of nice to occasionally have a counter of that and escape into that. And we were just in the UK, we were just going through, I think Brexit had just happened, so there was this dark cloud kind of looming over Britain, and it didn't kind of know where it was, and then we had the kind of, you know, obviously, as the kind of year continued, and we had the whole Trump thing, it kind of, that kind of world was, you know, there was a lot of kind of serious stuff going on, and so it was nice to do an escapism version that got away from that, and just kind of have a standalone feature that's a whole lot of fun, and that's, you know, and I was very, very excited to do that, and very, very excited I had to do a British action movie, you know, a big bombastic, crazy action movie. That was what kind of brought me in. So so I signed up, and again it was like hit the ground running, because we had to like the next stage of the production is really going out to cast, and, you know, getting it cast and taking it from a script that we all are supporting to a project, right, that can be financed and produced. And so another writer friend that I've done a lot of work with, a guy called Jonathan Frank, he was brought on board, and we all worked together on a script to send out to actors, and that was kind of the next stage of the process, which again we only had a few weeks, but there was certain, it was that was what we focused on in those weeks, and then it went out, and, you know, the process began really.
And the first person who signed on was Pierce Brosnan. So how did he get attracted to this?
That was funny. Yeah, I you know, this is a funny story with that. I remember we had this crazy deadline to hand the script in, and weirdly, just as these things always do, they kind of happen at the wrong time, right? The non-ideal time, and just in contrast, Jono and I, we'd had a horror film called Mara, which we'd been working on for about 8 years. So we had this idea for a horror film 8 years back. We were making it with a director friend called Clive Tong, and we'd finally got that film into production. So I was producer on that movie. It was shooting in Savannah, Georgia, and that was happening as all this rewrite was going on. And I remember we were just about to kick off the shoot on that, and we were in Savannah trying to finish the script to hand it back to the producers, and we were in this hotel, and I remember it was like a bizarre situation where we'd left a couple of scenes till the end because we knew they were important and they were going to be important to actors, and we we wanted to kind of do justice to them. And there was one particular scene that the Dimitri character, which is for Piers, that character tells a story, and it's kind of like, he tells a story which is supposed to be about sacrifice and teach the character a lesson, and it was very important to the script. But I remember on the night, it was 2 a.m. in the morning. We were supposed to have handed the script in at 12 or whatever, and a basketball team pulled into the hotel and started crowding around us, kind of going, "Hey man, what are you guys doing?" And we were like, "We're trying to write a script," and it was all this crazy kind of atmosphere, and we couldn't really, we were struggling with what to put in there, and Jono, he had this kind of, this bizarre story about his mum had this chicken, a one-eyed chicken called Clara when she was a kid, and we kind of wrapped it into this story that we put down on paper, and we thought, right, it's okay, we'll put that there, it's temporary, we'll change it, but we've got to get the script off. So we did that, sent the script off, we went off and did the horror film, thought nothing of it, and then I get a call saying, look, we sent the script to Piers Brosnan, who we really wanted, and he's responded well, and he'd like to talk to you. And I get on the phone to Piers, and the first thing Piers says is like, Scott, the thing I really love about the script is one-eyed Clara. And it tells me the chicken thing is his favourite thing, and then he loved it, loved the little story, and how bizarre that little story fits into the central narrative, and it made me laugh, and it really made me laugh. Like a few weeks later, we were in the stadium shooting that scene, and it hadn't changed a word from when we'd been in the foyer of that hotel, surrounded by kind of this crazy basketball team, writing this thing, and then Piers is delivering this amazing performance of that story a few weeks later. I remember John and I looked at each other thinking, what is going on? But yeah, it was funny. But Piers is a sweetheart. He was absolutely great, and I think when he when he came on, that kind of green lights the film to an extent. Do you know what I mean? It's like another asset that you have in the production bag, and it's like, right, we got the stadium, we got Piers, we got the script this way, that way, we got all these elements, and he was a very important element to the film moving forward. So it was great to have, but also put on the pressure. The truth is, as soon as that happened, it was like, holy smokes, this film is happening, and it's going to happen. And do you know what I mean? It's like we all had the gun to our head, kind of cocked the hammer, and it was kind of like we had more to lose. So we all buckled on down and cracked on, and that's when we moved into the stadium, if I recall correctly. That's kind of when we all moved in there and set about pre-production and continuing to write the script, rewrite the script.
So we should tell the listeners this has been compared to a Die Hard in a football stadium.
Yeah.
And so do you want to give the listeners a little idea of what the movie is about?
Yeah, that's kind of it. That's a good analogy, and it is. Do you know what I mean? I think it basically tells the story of it's a football game, a very important football game, and it's taken hostage by these mercenaries who demand that someone in the crowd that they're after is released out of witness protection and get handed over to them. Otherwise, they'll blow the stadium at 90 minutes. And Dave Bautista's character plays Michael Knox. He's in the wrong place at the wrong time, and he doesn't know anything about soccer, as he calls it. And but he's there to take his best buddy's daughter to the game, a best friend that he's lost recently, and she's lost her father, and it's this really important game that's been on the father's bucket list, and he aims to fulfill that by taking her there. She kind of gets lost in the crowd, and then he he ends up kind of stumbling into this situation and really fights through to try and rescue and do the right thing by the girl and save the day. So that's kind of a long and short of it. But yeah, Die Hard in a Football Stadium is a much shorter way to kind of summarize the film up. Or Sudden Death. Here's the other thing, Jen. I like during the production, I've not seen Sudden Death, which I'm embarrassed to admit because it's the kind of film that I love. But I had never seen Sudden Death. But people kind of point out, this isn't really Die Hard in a Football Stadium. It's more Sudden Death, and a UK version of Sudden Death. And looking at it, I totally accept that. It's very, it's got great similarities. But I like the throwback nature of things. Truthfully, like I don't mind that, and we really embraced it. Like if people call it rip off Die Hard, that's fine. It's like we kind of like we wanted to do a standalone kind of fun movie like this, and I think there's no point trying to pretend that the movies having kind of gone in different areas. I think that the challenge is to do something kind of fresh and inventive within those constraints and kind of a fresh take and slant on it, and that's what I think we did. So I don't mind at all any comparisons or any accusations. It's totally cool. We were very aware, and also we did a few nods. Do you know what I mean? We did a few purposeful nods where we were like, look, we are fully aware this has similarities, and there's a few little Easter eggs in there to kind of like find for that. So it's all cool.
So tell us a little bit. Dave Bautista plays the main character in this film, and so tell us a little bit about his casting and how that came about.
So I worked with Dave on Heist, which was a movie we shot 2014-15 with De Niro and Jeffrey D. Morgan, and at the time Dave was kind of new to the scene, really. Like I remember he was he shot, I think he'd shot material for Guardians. If I remember rightly, I'd seen some early footage of Guardians on his reel that his agents submitted, and he clearly kind of, he was kind of like an exciting new talent, but he was new to the game in a sense, and he had a character, he played kind of alpha male antagonist in that film, like the villain really, or one of the villains, and what surprised me about Dave most of all was that he was a super sweet guy, not at all what you would have expected and what he kind of, what he played and his persona was kind of perceived to be, but also he was really talented and really hungry to work hard and grow as an actor. He was really, he's got a great mindset and determination, and I think I kind of felt that he had a lot more talent than people give him credit for and a lot more potential than people knew about. And so it gave me a slight inside track on that. So when this came about, it was like, the truth was the casting wasn't straightforward. It wasn't like in February it was like, all right, yeah, it would be perfect. At that point, the early script had a British character, and it was a guy who loved the football, didn't want to miss the last game, and that was kind of, it was a different narrative in a sense. It wasn't so fish out of water. And I talked to Dave about being in the film, actually playing a different part, and we got talking, and I don't know if it's his idea or one of the writers, but for someone to kind of pitch that idea, look, what if we just spin this on its head? Like, what if it is, the American guy hates the sport, and we kind of do it the other way around, and don't kind of do the underdog kind of, the kind of weaker guy. Like, he can be, there's still huge amounts of threats you can throw at a character, even a character of Dave's size, and we kind of knew what Dave was like in real life. He's a charming, lovely guy, gives great hugs, and it's like, take that element of Dave. Do you know what I mean? Forget how we think of him, and forget certain characters played like a villain, and bring out a bit more of him, and he's got this grounded, great nature that we can tap into. So Dave really, like, those conversations with Dave doing it were very. I remember I was walking around the pitch, kind of on FaceTime with him, talking through what this would mean to the script, that it meant that we had to get, go in and rewrite moments, but it was all kind of timed in with the film happening. It was weeks, if not less than a week before we were starting to shoot. So it was a very kind of, like all of this film, it had to be this very kind of organic process to say, yeah, I think this is a good idea and we can do it, and how do we do it? And he became very kind of a big part of that, of developing the character and really putting it into, just making it the best version of what it is. So I think, it was it kind of, like all the final score, it kind of happened not in this kind of, in a normal fashion. It happened in this kind of mixing pot fashion, and it was very exciting. Like, as soon as we kind of talked about the idea, it was immediately really exciting to kind of dig into, and I think that's what drove us all into this place of where we ended up, and I'm really glad we did, and I'm so glad that we went that way. Even though, I can say that when we set about, it wasn't an American character in the film, I think, that made a great difference in a very positive way in the movie. So it was, so it was a constant development, and also, again, I think with the flavour of the universe where it was, I think that constant development allowed us to be fresh within the time frame. It allowed us to kind of tap into things and ideas and moments that we couldn't have tapped into had we written the script. Even a year prior, the film would have been completely different because the world was a completely different place a year prior. So it's been, it's been very kind of freeing in a sense to do something like this where you're kind of making it up live, So it was a different process, but it had big advantages. So it was really cool.
It is cool. Not to go backwards, but a little bit. But did they have because originally that character was supposed to be British? Did they have a British actor in mind for that role?
Like we talked about some of them, but the thing is, it was, and we did talk about, and there was other actors lined up that I'd met with, and that really wanted to do it, but it just made it a different film. And I think when you have all the options, I think with casting, what often happens is you're kind of spinning plates and you're looking at how these all link together. And really, until you kind of push the button and say, hey, we're locking this all down, you don't have a full view of it. So kind of, it's like you kind of try and like line up as best you can and then click it into place. And I felt, and so even on, I remember Heist was like that. Originally, Dave was playing a different role on Heist. Dave and Maurice Chestnut were playing each other's roles originally, and it was like last minute moving to kind of lock things in place so that you get the best kind of combination of people for the roles. And so we did have like some names floating about, and we had even gone as far as kind of, I'd sat down, talked to them, some great guys, but it wasn't adding up to be the same film. It affected the casting of Faisal, it affected the character of Faisal, of Danny. There's all these kind of knock-on effects, and really Dave was the first time where it all kind of felt like it was going to click together. So yeah, but we did, we had some people in mind, but it was all, it was all in the kind of mad fortnight of crazy casting. So we never went anywhere. We didn't explore any Americans, strangely enough. Like it was only through this conversation with Dave that it kind of ended up this way. Like we didn't kind of go the American route at all initially, which is kind of limits the amount of kind of casting you have access to, right? So yeah, there was all that. I remember Dave saying, I remember we having a conversation with Dave about the idea that Dave plays a British guy. It was just never going to work. So we avoided that. But yeah, but it's funny how you kind of mix it, you mix it up and everything,
Yeah, makes it interesting, does. We're going to be right back after these commercial breaks. You are listening to The Jan Price Show, all about movies on Power Talk 1460 in 101 FM. Like The Jan Price Show on Facebook and check out thejanpriceshow.com.
The Yozio Theater in downtown Monterey is now open every day, showing independent and foreign films. The Yozio Theater has new concession offerings, including beer, wine, hard cider, and their homemade Lush Slush. You can now schedule private event screenings for community charity events, birthdays, anniversaries, or just a fun gathering of friends. For more information, visit the Yozio Theater online at oziotheater.com.
On Power Talk AM 1460 and FM 101.1, streaming worldwide on iHeartRadio. Jan Price talks to the movers and shakers in the film business. The Jan Price Show.
We are back, and my guest today is director Scott Mann, and we're talking about his brand new movie called Final Score, starring Pierce Brosnan and Dave Bautista. So, what was the you have a lot of action in this movie, a lot of action, very amazing stunts. They're just jaw-dropping stunts in this movie. One that I just found fascinating was the fight in the elevator.
Yeah.
How difficult was that to film? I have to think that it had to be extremely difficult.
That's true. It's a good question. I was very conscious of, and I guess, an action film for me, it wants different flavored set pieces, right? I was very conscious. Look, you do an action film, and you don't want to feel like you've been there before, even in the same movie. So even having two fights is risky if they're not distinctively different in some way. And trying to like mix up vehicle action, like wider action, close quarters action, all those kind of things. So trying to find different flavors of action to cram into your film is like one challenge. And it's always looking at inventive ways where you haven't quite seen that before. And obviously people had, fights in elevators. In fact, one of the Die Hards is one of the best scenes in the elevator, right? But I think what I hadn't seen before really is like this close quarters kind of squeezed fight where you've got this kind of innocent third party getting thrown around whilst these two kind of giants like fight it out in this tiny rickety little elevator. And it's kind of trying to be fun and inventive and exciting in that space. And it led to, and again, it was all born from like we wandered around the stadium and we found that elevator and it really existed, and that was really the way up to the control room. And we were like, this is a tiny elevator. It would be impossible to do a fight scene here. And that in itself is like, so let's do a fight scene here. And that's kind of what set it up. And really, the truth is when it breaks down, it's relatively simple. So what we did is we filmed in the stadium. And we filmed them going in, and we filmed them kind of, entering that lift as it was. And then our production designer, Matthew Button, he kind of put up 4 very simple walls, which had to be braced heavily from the stunt team, the grips, because we were slamming about the two guys in there. There's quite a lot of energy exerted that would take down the flats. Because we basically set up a little, essentially like a little studio space where we could take away a wall at a time. And the way kind of I approached it was I do all my coverage from, say, one side while we have that wall off. Then we go back in, we bolt the wall down, we take the other wall off. I did an overhead one as well and things like that. And really it was kind of incredibly simple when it came down to it. It was down to kind of great stunt performances by Pete Patero and his team. And Lee Charles, who plays, what's the character's name now? I'm forgetting because there's so many Russian names thrown in there. I want to say Victor, but that's not the character. But Andre, I believe it is. And they kind of did a great job. And for me, it was just kind of trying to get access, like moving those walls out and quickly filming that side, then the other side, and doing it that way. And then just combining that really with, in the edit, knowing that you can kind of move things around quite easily laterally in the edit. So the kind of bounce of the lift, I really wanted it to feel like it was like bumping around. So although the set was kind of solid, in the edit we kind of shot it to give ourselves a little room to kind of do almost like little animation movements when it kind of gets bashed about. So it was a combination of very kind of low tech approaches really that we shot that scene. And like all these things, you don't have enough time and you don't have enough money, and you've got to, I always look at, like, I think it was maybe Danny Boyle said this, like look at the simplest way you can possibly shoot a scene. Look at the simplest, kind of the most basic approach to tell the story, and then kind of work up from there. And I think that's a good motto for filmmakers, right? Don't look at it like pieces, and don't look at it like a complex kind of variation. Look at it, right? If I really want to keep this simple, this is the way, and then let kind of grow from there outwards and cover it in the most straightforward way that'll tell a story. Because we don't, if we want our film to kind of deliver and have all this action, we've got to kind of not, there's got to be the freedom to do what you need to do in the time you've got. So yeah, so it was relatively straightforward, that scene, but I was very happy the way it turned out.
Yes, definitely. I mean, what was the most difficult part of filming this movie?
Well, without doubt, I would say the crowds were the most difficult.
I was going to ask you about that, because you had to fill the stadium. How many extras did you have?
We had about 40 extras, so it was, which is crazy when you think the stadium's full of 35,000 people. So we were. That was always the constraining factor. Like again, like films like this, they tend to operate in a certain budget range where I think a lot, like now the way cinema's moved on, is middle, like kind of a mid-range film like this. It doesn't really have the money to do like what you used to be able to do. Let's say this was sudden death, the budgets would be very different, right? And so we always kind of find this thing of trying to deliver story and moments without without the traditional means to do it. We couldn't possibly fill the stadium with all the people we need. I'd have loved to have 1,000 or 2,000 extras each day, but that's just no way, because that's going to cost, £100,000 a day, and that's kind of a 20th of what we got to spend on the movie. So we got to, it's kind of trying to be inventive, and we had a great support, actually. The key 40 people that we had were West Ham fans who came in and helped us out and hung around, and we were a great laugh. And then we kind of had to be inventive about how to kind of fill out the wider shots and do the rest of it. And the way we did that in the end, because we were very conscious from the start that it was going to be a problem, we went to the last game of the season. We went to, I think it was Man U versus West Ham. The last game of the stadium, the very last game that was played, and we had about 6 or 7 8K cameras, and basically I tried to shoot background plates of the real audience from positions more or less where I was going to shoot the actual scene. So I didn't know for certain, because we were still writing elements of the script, but I kind of knew, right, we're going to do the jump off the top of the stadium roof, so we're going to need to see the seats from up there, so we need the camera position there. We know we're going to do the thing at the corner of the stadium, we're going to look out the control room, all these different areas, and so we spent the 90 minutes of a real game going around with these cameras and shooting the actual audience. And so the actual audience from that game became these background plates that we would paint in, and we'd basically cut round the actors and paint them back in the post-production process. And a lot of the stadium was filled that way. And then on top of that, we had these great effects guys, Outpost Effects from the UK, had a guy called Duncan, and they basically did a scan. It's probably the most kind of technologically impressive part of the movie, is they did like a LiDAR scan, I think it was, at the stadium, and then they filled it out with kind of 3D, like little sprites, and on the really wide shots of the stadium that you see, and actually some of the kind of closer, more, when you see kind of a greater depth, that was usually a combination of like foreground extras, real people we shot, and then when you go deeper, it's these 3D kind of this 3D audience that's put in there, and then they blend it all together and make it look super. And there's about 900 visual effects shots in the movie, but pretty much all of them are kind of invisible effect shots, So that was the biggest challenge, to do that on a crazy tight budget and not have it feel like we faked it, So I think that was definitely the biggest kind of technical challenge we faced, I would say.
Wow, it really, it's fascinating, to hear how movies get made. We can watch them and enjoy them, and we don't even think about all of the things that go into making these scenes so realistic.
Yeah, hopefully not.
Who inspires you? What director, Scott, has inspired you the most? I would say, maybe because Terminator 2 is my favorite film about that. Which movie? Which movie?
Because Terminator 2 is one of my favorite movies, so I would say, because of that, I'd say James Cameron is, I think is an incredible filmmaker, and I love how he combines kind of the art and the science of things, and I think I've been a huge admirer of everything he's done. I like Spielberg. Who doesn't like Spielberg, right? But I think Robert Zemeckis is an unsung hero in the directing world. Honestly, I think, especially with a bunch of films that I grew up with and loved, I think Zemeckis is an interesting filmmaker, that he kind of can do different genres. A lot of filmmakers don't do that. They can't kind of migrate from genre to genre, but he seems to try different things and go different places, and that's very exciting, I think, and daring as well. So he's been, for years, one of my favorite filmmakers, but doesn't seem to get quite the kudos I think he probably deserves, given, he directed Back to the Future of all films, so that in itself should be, should be worshipped. So yeah, those guys. But it's very often, I think, with these things, it's like, which films you grew up with as a child, right? Because that affects you in a slightly deeper way than maybe modern filmmakers. Like a huge admirer of Christopher Nolan, of course. I think he's a tremendous filmmaker. But yeah, I think the directors that I kind of the material I loved when I was a child has probably affected me more directly. So yeah, I'd put them there. Jim Cameron, Robert Zemeckis, and Spielberg are probably my top 3. Yeah.
All great directors, no question about it, no question about it. Well, Scott, it has been such a pleasure having you on the show. This movie is you're an interesting person to interview. I love your energy and your enthusiasm, and the final score is out in the movie theaters right now. So if you're looking for a fun, action-packed movie, I highly recommend finding the final score. Thank you so much for being on the show, Scott.
Thank you, Jen.
Wish you much success.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. You've been listening to the Jan Price Show, all about movies on Power Talk 1460 and 101 FM. Like the Jan Price Show on Facebook and check out thejanpriceshow.com.